Anytime you can walk into a house and you go down the basement, it's cooler in the basement than it is on the main floor, and then you go upstairs, if you have an upstairs, and it's hotter upstairs than it is on the main floor, that means I haven't done a very good job of sealing and insulating my home. We know that if we can do some things with our homes, that we can, as Aaron said, we can reduce our energy bills, and we can reduce them significantly. That anybody in their home that's got an old home could easily reduce their energy consumption and therefore their bills by as much as 20 to 40%. When we talk about conditioned space, we normally think of that's where I live. I condition the space where I live, and if it's a basement and I'm definitely not in the crawl space, then I'm not going to call that conditioned space. It is conditioned space. When you see those dollar bills and $100 bills blowing like they are, there's a problem there. It's called air infiltration. Air infiltration is the one thing we have got to stop if we want to lower our energy bills. Stopping air infiltration. When your house leaks, that means you've got to keep replacing that air. That air is being replaced, and you've got to recondition it to either stay cool in the summer or stay warm in the winter. But we're finding out that Model Energy Code is building a pretty leaky house because we have lots of penetrations coming through that wall. If you've got single pane windows and storm windows on the outside of that, it doesn't pay to change the windows. If that recessed can light goes up into the attic in unconditioned space and has to be vented to let the heat out from these expensive, not these here, but the incandescent light bulbs that we normally have in them because they create a lot of heat, that heat is going right up into unconditioned space. Heat always moves from the hot to the cold, but it also is not very well sealed. These right here are not very well sealed, and as a result you've got chimneys in your ceiling. If you have 10 of those recessed can lights like that, it will cost you about another half a ton of heating. This is a major heat loss right here. We do have, notice we do have a different type of recessed can light. It's ICL rated. It is not vented. We can now foam around it. If it goes up in the attic space, we can now cover it with insulation. The first thing we want to do is we got to plug the gaps and the cracks around the house perimeter. They never change the bits, or they use the same one for all of them. Well, they don't go back and they don't seal them up. So everywhere there's a penetration with a utility coming in, and something was mentioned this morning that said, you know, that service entrance panel that comes in with all those wires or goes out, and sometimes to the outside or coming in from the outside to the inside. No one thinks about sealing that up. Well, one of the most important things here is a caulk gun and caulk. Some of the older houses, I've actually told our members, you know, you're probably going to waste some time doing it on the outside, and they don't have any insulation in their plaster walls, but they have corners and they have all kinds of draftiness and they feel it. They may want to take some clear caulk. This is not clear, but they may want to take some clear caulk and literally go around the inside of the window frame. And it's called great stuff, and it says for windows and doors. But there's also this great stuff that's for gaps and cracks. Do not use gap and crack foam for windows and doors. If it comes to a seam or a corner, okay, like something like this, let's say this is my ceiling right here, there's nothing wrong with taking some clear silicone caulk or clear caulk and just running a good bead along there. But I would try to, every time there's a corner or an angle where two pieces of wood might meet, framing would meet, I want to caulk that. So the most important thing you can do in your house is start there. And if properly installed, fiberglass insulation will work. And I said, if properly installed. As soon as you compress the fiberglass, you have just reduced its R value. Now, how did they get that fiberglass insulation in around the windows and doors? They stuffed it. They stuffed it. Well, by stuffing it, it doesn't insulate anymore. We need 15 to 16 inches of insulation in your attic to get the R50 R value that is required for this area. If I've already got a wall existing and I want to put insulation in it, we highly recommend dense pack, cellulose. It's the air infiltration that's caused to you, and this stops it. But again, the thing we're really after is stopping air infiltration. That makes sense? Both of these will do that. Fiberglass is about 35 to 45 cents a square foot, I should say a wall cavity per square foot. This is running 75 to 80 cents, and this is running anywhere from a 2 to 250 for the same cavity per square foot. We recommend these two when it comes to insulation, both in the attic and in the walls. We know we can cut your energy costs about 20% when it comes to heating and cooling. That's not a lot of R value right there. If all I got is siding out here and I've just got this 1.5, 2x6, they call it 2x6, so it's 1 3/4. There's no more than 2 R value right here in this wood. Well, guess what? That 6 inches of concrete or block has got the same R value as a single pane of glass. You're heating the outside before you ever get the heat into your house. But we highly recommend going into this area here and spray foam 2 inches. That is going to pay for itself so quickly because this is just letting air flow through. Now, so we don't only want to insulate this area right here, we want to come right on over the sill and down the sill plate and right down the wall. It doesn't do you a whole lot of good to insulate your crawl space and leave the vents open. If we got to take care of the moisture, if it's coming because of a spring or it's a low area, we got to drain it, put a sump pump or something in there and get it out of there and keep it dry. I didn't say this about attics, but a lot of times, even in the attic now, they're no longer putting vents in there. In fact, they're closing it up with foam and sealing it all the way up to the roof and making that conditioned space. As we tighten up the building envelope, you know, as we seal the gaps and the cracks and all that, and we put in insulation that doesn't allow airflow, we're tightening up this house. And what's happening is we're still continuing to use water, but now it's not escaping anymore, unless we have good exhaust systems. The bathroom exhaust fan, is it vented really to the outside? It should be, number one. It should never be vented to the attic. That should be a straight shot. It should be directly to the outside, so it gets outside before it condenses. Most existing homes is going to be awful difficult to tighten up too tight. But again, air quality is becoming a major issue, and we need to be checking for these things. Well, you ain't seen nothing yet when it comes to energy costs. Believe me, you're going to pay a whole lot more than you're paying. So we've got to get control of our own costs when it comes to our homes and how we use energy.